Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Reza and this is Coding Adventure. Today I'm going to create a REST API service by the help of GitHub Copilot. The goal is making a REST service that connects two separated data sources, which is MongoDB and PostgreSQL, and does the creation when you post the data and also get the information when you get. So the first step is creating a new project, and I'm using IntelliJ IDEA with JDK 17. First, name it as web service dash copilot. I'm using Maven, and I add a code group ID as coding adventure. Created. So automatically we have some codes here, which eventually I want it and I delete it. So let's use GitHub Copilot. So there is a plugin over here, and I'm going to ask create a REST service Spring Boot. So as you see, it gives me some information here, and I'm adding more information. Save data in Postgres and so as you see, now it has more information and it gives me lots of information. So is it okay to just copy paste, put everything there? The answer is no. GitHub Copilot is a co-pilot, as the name suggests. So it means that it helps me to write the code faster, more efficient, but I cannot rely 100% to the code. So I'm proving you this. So for example, for the dependencies, it asked me to add these dependencies. Let's add these dependencies here. And let's reload the dependency and let's see what happens. As you see, it doesn't work. It means that something is missing. And only by experience you will figure out that something missing and you need to add it. So if I go here, top part, it misses the parent. So if I add the parent, now you see that the errors disappeared. Next step, what does it suggest? So that's a very good suggestion. It means that later, when you have your project, if we come back to the menu that we see here, and if you have a service, later in while the implementation, you will see that I will add more layers to the project. But at the end, when you have a repository layer here, you want to connect to Postgre or MongoDB, to add information in a file name application properties. And it suggests me to use it very well. So I'm going to use it. So actually, I'm going to the resources and to add a new file and name it as application. And I'm going to copy paste. However, it needs to be changed. Why? Because it has the username and password and also the database name that you need to create. So again, it's a copilot for you. And also for the MongoDB, the URL that you add here is not real because you need to rename it with the database and collections that you generate in your MongoDB. However, it helps me because it's faster. What's the next step? It suggests me to create a Postgres entity, which I don't know it, I don't want it to do. What I want to do now is creating another entity. So if I come back to the REST service, I do not want to have a default entity. Let's think about an entity that we would like to work with it. And for this example, I have an entity, name it as person, which has name and simply an age. That's it. So I'll come back to the entity into the good GitHub Copilot, create a class person with name and age. So what it suggests is creating a class within a person, and I'm going to do that. So let's do them step by step. First step is I have a domain. Okay, I would like to put the classes in the related packages. So I have a domain package that I will add whatever class that I have as a domain class and domain service. So I copy this one and I'm creating a new class name as person, and I will paste it. So something that bothers all the developers is adding all this code that looks a little bit repetitive. What can we do? The answer is that there is a plugin that you can use which helps you just by adding annotations such as getter, setter, helps you to replace with all those getters, setters, and constructors. What can I do and how can you do that? The answer is in the pom.xml, you only need to add the related plugin, which is Lombok. So in the dependencies, I add project Lombok, and also just need to check in your settings in the plugins if you have Lombok. If you don't, you need to add it. Otherwise, it's okay. Perfect. So if you add them, then I can easily import Lombok. Setter, builder, make an object, all args constructor for having a constructor with all the fields, and no args constructor. So as you see, by adding annotation, I don't have to add all those repetitive methods. Also, you can add it to string in case. Perfect. The next step is having a controller. So let's check if it gives me a controller. Perfect. It has a controller as well. However, I just give some inspiration. What I'm going to do is adding my own package and I name it as API and I create a new controller, name it as person controller, which is REST controller. Okay. Also, I can ask more questions like person controller for post get, and let's see what it suggests. That is much better because also it gives me the annotation request mapping, which I forgot. So it means that localhost 8080 gives you person. And then also we have post mapping here. And paste. So This simplified version of a code means that if we come back to the diagram, from the controller directly, you have a person repository and you persist, which I don't want it for now. What I want, I would like to have different layers in my application. Means that I have a layer for controller. I have a layer as a service. And I have a layer for sorry. Of course, I have config, packages, or layer that every layer has access to that. But when you send a post request, it goes to service, then service goes to repository, and then repository connects to the MongoDB. Okay, so if I want to show it again, it means that you have a controller, you send a request, it goes to the service, service connects to the repository, and repository will, for example, create the data in the SQL and also create the data in the MongoDB. This is the process. And what we do is using O. So DTO is a data transfer object. So whenever you send information to the controller, we use DTO. That DTO needs to be mapped to a domain model, which is a person, and person needs to be converted to entity object. An entity will be persist here. And also we have a document. That document will be persisted in the MongoDB, which after I implement it, it will be easier to see. Perfect. So let's come back to the code. We have controller, and the goal of controller is communicating from the outside to inside the service, and from the inside the service to the outside. There is no logic in the controller. Whatever logic we have will be in the service. So what we need is service, and we will have packages for that. Have a service, and we create a new service, and I'll name it as person service. The person service, add annotation service, and the goal is communicating with the controller. So what I can do is auto wiring private person service. I can import it. Perfect. So now we have a controller. We have a person service that doesn't have anything in there. And eventually we will have a method post to create a person. What you send is a go of a person which needs to cast to a person and send it to send to service. Okay, so for now we stop the controller. Let's go to the person service. So we know that we will have a method public void create person that has a person, and we want to save it to the database. But we need to config our database connection. So what I would like to do, creating a new package and name it as config. So in the config, I'm going to create a new Java class and name it as person repository factory, which is a configuration bin. And in the bin configuration, I will create two dependency, which one of them is Postgres repository factory that gives me eventually a PostgreSQL connection and also Mongo repository factory. So what is Mongo repository factory? I would like to create different layers just for extensibility. It can be compressed to one or two layers, but I really suggest that you do it with the different layers. Maybe you code more, but you see that in the real project, it will be very helpful. So I'm going to create Postgres uh, repository factory, which doesn't have anything for now, which is a component. And also, I'm going to create another component, name it as Mongo repository, which is again a component. Let's go to the Postgres repository factory. It will have a dependency to the person repository. So this is the last layer between the database. So if you come back here, there would be one layer between the database and your service, which is the repository, which is an interface which extends the JPA repository. Okay. So we will need another interface, which is going to be the new package. Package will be repository. And here I'm going to create a new Java class, which is an interface, and name it as person repo. This repository extends JPA repository here. So it suggests to give the class person, which is not true because the class person that I have domain class and it doesn't have any ID. What I need is another kind of entity and I name it as person, which is an entity class that you can choose the table name as person in the database. Okay, so this is the physical name of a table in the database, which has an ID and also generated value, which has a strategy of identity. For the field, long ID. Also, it has the other two fields that we mentioned here will be persisted in the database. Awesome. Something is missing. Getter, setter, and all args constructor and no args constructor. I'm going to use person entity in the person repository. Okay, awesome. Also, since I'm going to use eventually MongoDB, also I am going to create another interface and name it as person document repository, which extends Mongo repository. And here, I cannot use person entity. What I need is a person document, which is very similar, but this is different. So I'm going to create a new Java class and name it as person document. So again, that works with the annotation. Instead of adding doc entity, we will have document. The name of the collection is persons. We will have getters and setters. What do you have? Very similar to what we had here, but this time no generated value, and we have string an ID, and I'm going to use person document and port. What would be the identifier? Will be type string. Awesome. Okay. Now I can use those things in the factory. Perfect. So now let's go to Mongo repository factory, and here we auto-wired add dependency to private person document repository and name it as person document repository. So I would like to get this bin. What I need to do is adding a getter. However, I can also add uh, a method like person repository. Mongo does not support person repository because person repository is JPA. So I can add this method just in order to be sure that not want to call this method in the Mongo repository. Very similar thing we do the Postgres repository factory. So here, go here, auto wired, and then private person repository, getter. Also, you can do something that you did here, public, uh, person repository. Sorry, here, Postgres does not support post person repository. Perfect. Now we go to Postgres repository factory, very similar to what we did on the Mongo repository factory. First of all, we auto wire private person repository. Okay, and the next step is public person document repository, get document person repository, and we throw unsupported operation exception. What we need is adding getter. So now we can go to the person repository factory. And in the person repository factory, we will auto-wire these dependencies. Private Postgres repository factory, and also wired private Mongo repository factory. And then we will add bean annotation to return public or person repository. And another bean, as you see, since I'm adding GitHub Copilot, which I explained in my previous videos, uh, my IntelliJ idea is very smart and it gives some suggestion that I write code as less as possible. Okay, so now we have person repository factory. Now I will go to the person service and I will auto-wire private person repository factory in the person service, which gives me this option to call person service dot get person repository dot save. However, there's a problem because save method doesn't accept person and it accepts person entity. So I'm going to create a person entity equals entity. Uh, doesn't have any builder. I'm builder for that. Entity dot builder dot what is the age? Is person dot get age, get name dot build. Awesome. And I can use this person entity for saving to database. Awesome. The same thing, similar thing happens when you want to save the data to MongoDB. So first we need to cast it. However, instead of writing all these codes, generate an entity or DTO for casting objects to objects, what I'm going to do is adding a new entity and name it as person mapper. So I'm going to create a new package and name it as mapper. Create a new Java class, name it as person mapper. So person mapper will be a component. This component will have a dependency auto-wired private model mapper. So model mapper is not here and is not being known unless I add the dependencies in the pom.xml. Go to the pom.xml. You can also ask model mapper maven dependency. So use this one, go to the dependencies and add. Reload the maven dependencies. Color should change. Awesome. So now we can go to the person mapper, import it, and use it in our project. So we have a person mapper. What is the goal of this mapper? We want to convert the objects to different types. So automatically gives me an option. Uh, Imagine you have a person and you want to change it to the person detail. In my case, I have a person and I wanted to change it to person entity. Okay, which is a person as an input. And just by calling map, automatically converts it to the person entity. I'm going to use this method, map person to person entity. Let's use this method. So in the person service, that one, I call actually auto-wired private person mapper, and I call person mapper, map person to person entity, and I call the person. There is something missing, which is the person mapper class, which is a component, but I need to also generate the uh, model mapper. So the config, I'm going to create a new Java class and call it as model mapper big operation. I could have used the other classes, but it's okay. I'm creating new bean, public, model mapper. So in this case, the person mapper, when I use AutoWire, the model mapper will not be null. Okay, so R person entity. So I expect to have a person entity and I save it. The same thing is when I want to person, when I want to save it in the MongoDB. So person entity, and I need a method something like this. So it's a method for me, and it have a person, and I would like to convert it to person document. Yeah, we have it. Okay, so return upper, awesome. So this case, when I want to persist it, after I convert it to a person document, the only thing is adding a person repository dot get person document dot save the person. Very good. Now the only thing is missing is testing how we can persist them. So for connecting to MongoDB and also Postgre, I'm using Docker. So Docker is a container uh, technology that instead of installing, doing the configuration, and all the hassle, we just use Docker Compose. So I have a Docker Compose. Okay. So the only thing that you need to do is, first of all, you install the Docker, you install the Docker Compose, and create a YAML file. So I'm showing you my YAML file, and eventually I will add it in my GitHub repository. So create services, Postgres and MongoDB with this image, port, and this environment. Username, password, and DB, and also MongoDB. And the only thing that you need to run is running Docker Compose with the file name of D, which in this case it's running. When they run, I can see their images that they are running, and it's good. So the only thing that I need to do is checking with a client such as pgadmin in this case. So I have a database, okay, statisticsdb as it has suggested, and I use this database name in my configuration. So in the resources, what is the database name? Is statistics. What is the username? This name. And what is the password? Password. Okay. And then I expect to have the collection. The same thing for the MongoDB. So in the MongoDB, I'm using NoSQL Booster, which is a free client. Okay. And I have a database like statistics. I use the same name here. Awesome. So I expect to have the connection as I mentioned in the service. So after I save them in the database, what happens is this method, such as save, we go to the implementation, it gives me a result. So I would like to use the result, which in this case, if I put a name, or if I don't put a name, it's going to be a book entity, sorry, person entity. Okay. And this one is going to be a person document, the document entity, which is been will be populated by the fields that I don't have. So for example, here I will have ID and here I have object ID. What I would like to do is using this information and sending back to the controller. Okay, so I have this information, and what I will do here, after creating this information, I need to have those IDs. So in the controller, API, I'm going to create my post mapping. Okay, public. And what I will receive at the end is an object that is new, which is person create out. Okay. After you create a person that has a request body and you see that it automatically generated everything for me, you will send a person in, which is in the DTO. And again, it's suggested to me to suggested for me to create an object like person create, and then send it to person service. Awesome. However, I would like to use my own way. Okay. So first of all, I will create and I don't use it here. Okay. Oh, okay. I don't have any DTO. Let's create a new package. Name it as DTO. So this would be the result. Person create out DTO. Also, person DTO. I name it when I want to create it. So we have person DTO And also we have person create out DTO. What do they have? Okay. So person create out DTO, if you go there, again, they have all of this stuff. And also they will have two fields, private long ID, private string object ID. Okay. And also for the person DTO, very similar to the entity, but only name and age because ID is not needed here. Okay, so if I come back to the person controller, I'm going to import this one. I'm going to import this one. And I need a person, which is it by auto-wired private person mapper. And I use person mapper dot new method. Okay, yeah, that's good. I just need to create this method. Turns a person. And it return model mapper.map. I use this one, pass this one, create a person. I need those information. So I am going to create, I use person create out DTO and then turn person create dot DTO this, or you can use builder. Both cases are okay. And I return. Okay, let's go and see how it looks. So we go to the main. Something is missing here because we need to use Spring Boot application. Okay, and then uh, application needs to be run by a Spring application dot run main class args. Okay, see. Okay, so far so good. The connection went very well. The only thing is how we can test it. There are different tools. What I suggest is using Bruno. You can use Postman, but since Bruno is free, now the companies are more into that. But Postman, you need to pay for that. So let's create, name it as person, and create a folder, the location, that's one, and create person, create a new request, and name it as create developer mode, and this one is get person that I use it eventually. For the create person, going to be post, save it, give the address, and person. If I'm not mistaken, let's check again. In the person controller, person. So it has a body, JSON, and has name, Reza, and age 40. Awesome. It worked as I expected. So if I go to the Postman, PG admin, sorry, and look for the schemas, refresh, and the tables. I have a table person, which I get the rows. I see my document, and even so, if I go to uh, NoSQL Booster, if I refresh, I have persons, and here you see that the information is there. Awesome. So that worked as I expected. So the next step is adding a get. Since we created, let's also see what happens if I want to get the list of all the books in the MongoDB and also Postgre. So I'm adding annotation uh, get mapping, then public. So what do we expect? Since we have two different data sources, one way is showing either information in the MongoDB or Postgre or both at all. So you can do it on your own. And if you have any question, you can add the comment in the comment section. But what I'm going to do is something that is I found it interesting is adding a new DTU and name it as uh, person DTU. So what is person DTU? So since we have one person DTU, I'm going to rename it factor, name it, and I name it as person DTU. And I'm going to create a new Java class and name it as person out. Oh, okay. So the person out DTU will be a list of uh, person document DTO, which we don't have it yet, and I name it as person document. And another one is a private list of person SQL. So, and name it as person SQLs. So we need two more classes, okay, that I'm going to them, the DTO, or the Java util. And what does person document DTU contain? Very similar one. The only difference is they have ID and object ID. So person document DTU and person SQL DTU, but as the person document DTU, we have string ID, and the person SQL DTU, we have long ID, and again, we add the Lombok annotations. Okay, and then I'm using this person out DTU in my person controller as the result of get person. Get person doesn't have any. Actually, I will call it as get persons, and uh, get all persons returns me person out DTO, and the person service you need to have a method like get all persons. So you go and create that method. So what does it do? First of all, we need to call the person. So let's see what it suggests. Awesome. You see that it gives me what I expected. However, it gives me person entity and person document, which does not work for me. Technically, what I need for having all the persons is, first of all, convert this entity to the domain and convert this domain to you. However, just to wrap up the video, what I do is converting the entity directly to DTO and converting the document directly to DTO. So what we will do, call person entities dot map person mapper person entity to person. Uh, Person entity to person DTO. So we are going to create this method. We have person entity. We need to return person O. Add it here. Actually, the person out DTO. Person entity here. So the result is person O's dot to list. This one here as one, and then we have something similar. Map person entity person document. So we're going to create this method as well. Person out DTOs has person document and person SQL DTO. So actually I made a mistake. Person SQL DTO, and then we have also person document DTO. I'm going to use it here. Copy, paste, person. This one is person SQL DTOs. One is person document DTOs. So here I made a mistake actually. So get person document, map them. Here is not person entity, it's going to be person document. Okay, so we have person document, and I convert it to person document. Oh, and then we return the person entity. Let's stop it. Let's run it again. Get all persons, return it. Okay, it should be okay. Let's okay. So now I forgot to say that we need to add these annotations, and then the mapper as we change. Now it works as we expected. As you see, we have person document, person SQLs. We have two. Let's create another one. Name. So family name is Shaltrian, and let's create a new one. So we have three. And if I go to get persons, I expect to have three objects. Perfect. Thank you so much for watching the video. I will push this code into my GitHub repository, and the link will be in the video. Please ask me any question in the comment section. I will come over and check it time to time. And also don't forget to subscribe. Thank you and have a good day.